Hi, I'm Ava, and I got my sister's wedding invitation exactly 9 days before the ceremony. No phone call. No, can you make it? Not even a save the date. Just a stiff envelope with gold trim and my name slightly misspelled on the front. Ava Martin. Not Martin, not even hyphenated like I always sign it. I held the envelope in my hand for a long time, long enough for the corners to soften under my thumb, long enough for my stomach to twist in that familiar way it does when family makes something clear, without saying it out loud. The wedding was going to be at a lakefront estate in upstate New York. Classy, cold, coordinated. The kind of wedding my sister Chloe had been planning since she was 15. Pinterest boards, bridal magazines, sample menus. She was marrying Andrew. Charming, clean-cut, from a well-off family, and the kind of guy my mother used to nudge Chloe toward every time she dated someone too creative. I was not part of the bridal party. Not a bridesmaid. Not even on flower duty. The invitation didn't include a +1, a schedule, or a dress code. Just a line that read, "We'd love to have you with us as a guest on our special day." Guest, not sister, not family, just guest. I called my mom, because I had to know if this was a mistake or if Chloe had really chosen not to include me. She picked up on the second ring. "Oh, honey," she said before I could speak. "You got the invite? That's great." "Yeah, just wondering, was it supposed to be this last minute?" There was a pause. Then the smile in her voice returned, too smooth. "Well, things got busy. You know how weddings are. Chloe wanted to keep it intimate, traditional, fewer people, less pressure. She's inviting 112 people. Another pause. This time longer. "She just didn't want anyone to feel out of place," my mother said, her voice low. "You've always been different, and with your work being so unconventional, we didn't want the focus to shift." I felt heat rise up my neck. "My work? Sweetheart, you're doing fine. I'm not criticizing. We're just trying to create a tone, a sense of elegance." "Do I not fit the tone?" She exhaled like I was being difficult. "This isn't about you, Ava. Please don't make it about you." I hung up not because I was angry, yet, but because if I stayed on the line, I was going to start apologizing. And I've spent a lifetime saying sorry for simply existing too loudly in the wrong room. I booked a train ticket the next morning, not to please them, but because some things you have to see with your own eyes to let go of properly. When I arrived at the venue 3 days later, I saw them before they saw me. My mother in a cream-wrap dress, clipboard in hand, giving directions like she was the one getting married. Chloe standing nearby, laughing, wearing a silk robe and holding champagne, her glow so bright it felt like the rest of us were meant to orbit her. She looked right at me and didn't wave. "Hi," I offered, stepping closer. She blinked, surprised. "Oh, wow, I didn't think you'd come." I wasn't sure either. "Well, I'm glad you made it. There's a seat for you at table 12, with, I think, some of Andrew's cousins. Anyone I know? I don't think so." She smiled like a customer service rep. "But I'm sure they'll love hearing about your little projects." And just like that, I remembered why we stopped talking. The night before the ceremony, there was a rehearsal dinner. Everyone gave toasts. Chloe cried. My mom laughed like it was the happiest night of her life. At one point, I was introduced as the artsy one doing her own thing, you know how that is, followed by someone whispering, "Does she live in a van or something?" I smiled politely. I always do. But inside, something shifted. Not a snap, more like a click, like a lock finally sliding into place. I wasn't here to beg for inclusion. I was here to watch. Because sometimes, when people write you out of the story, they forget you're still holding the pen. Ever shown up to a family event and realized you were only there to complete the photo? Weddings have a rhythm, even before the music starts. Laughter rolls like waves, champagne flows, and everyone's on their best behavior until the speeches start. That's when truths slip out, wrapped in jokes and wine and, "I didn't mean it like that," disclaimers. I knew something was coming the second Chloe locked eyes with me across the reception hall. Not anger, not contempt, just that tight, perfect smile of hers. The one she used in high school when she'd compliment your outfit right before asking if it was thrifted. She tapped her glass with a fork. The room quieted instantly. "I just want to thank everyone for being here," she began, glowing under string lights. "This day means the world to me To us. She glanced at Andrew, who nodded warmly. His hand on hers looked practiced, controlled. I've dreamed about this day for a long time, Chloe continued, and I feel so lucky to be surrounded by people who understand me, who support me, especially when it comes to building a life, with goals, with structure, with purpose. Her eyes flicked toward me just long enough for it to register, because not everyone gets that. Some people think following your passion is enough. And hey, maybe it is, if your passion is, painting your feelings on a wall somewhere. A few chuckles rippled through the room. Not loud, but loud enough. My chest tightened. I felt the heat climb up the back of my neck. I wasn't sure if I should laugh, get up, or just disappear. I stayed seated. Of course I did. My mother was beaming. Not at the speech, really, but at the attention. Her head tilted like she was at a gallery opening, admiring her favorite exhibit. Chloe. She leaned over to the woman beside her, someone from her book club, and whispered, "She's always been such a natural speaker." I clenched my jaw and smiled. The kind of smile that looks fine from far away but up close is all teeth and restraint. After the speech, someone at my table asked, "Are you the one with the design blog?" "I run an independent studio," I replied calmly. "We focus on community art installations and public space revitalization." "Oh," she said, nodding. "So, like murals?" I nodded. "Sometimes. We also do therapy-based workshops for underserved youth." She blinked. "But not like a real business?" And there it was. Not a punch. Just a slow leak in the room, the kind that deflates you silently while everyone keeps dancing. Later that night, I stood alone near the back terrace, away from the music, sipping flat champagne and trying to steady my breath. Andrew appeared beside me, hands in his pockets. "You okay?" he asked. I glanced at him. "You tell me. I'm just the struggling artist ruining the wedding aesthetic." He laughed, but not cruelly. "For what it's worth, I thought your last piece, the one with the community mosaic in Midtown, was brilliant." I turned toward him. "You know about that?" "I Googled you," he said with a shrug. "Chloe said you were a little out there, so I figured that meant interesting." I raised an eyebrow. And she left out a lot. There was something in his tone, not pity, not curiosity, something closer to quiet frustration. "You're not what she said you were," he added. "And frankly, I'm starting to wonder who else isn't." That stuck with me. Not the compliment, not even the fact that he looked me up. It was the idea that he wasn't just seeing me, he was starting to see them. Before I went to bed that night, I checked the seat chart for tomorrow's brunch. My name wasn't on it, but there was a table 6 overflow. No names, just a category. I guess that's what I was to them now. Overflow. Ever sat through a toast meant to honor someone, and realized it was written to humiliate you instead? The next morning, I woke up early, before the venue staff had started setting up the farewell brunch. I needed air, not the fake kind with floral centerpieces and mimosas, but the kind that didn't judge you for still existing. I wandered to the lake. It was quiet, flat water, soft light, and the kind of silence that feels earned after a night of being the background. I pulled out my phone and did something I hadn't done in a long time, scrolled back through old family albums. Not on Instagram, not some curated feed. The actual photo archive Mom had uploaded to a shared cloud folder last year titled Family Memories. I started clicking through. Christmas 2009. Chloe front and center, holding her new bike, red bow on top. I'm off to the side, half cropped out, still in pajamas. Caption, Chloe's big surprise. Next, Easter. Chloe in a pastel dress holding a basket. Me holding a garbage bag of egg wrappers. Graduation. Chloe again. Me, missing entirely. I was there. I remember the cheap folding chair, the itchy robe, the way Mom forgot my tassel color. But you wouldn't know that from the folder. I scrolled faster. Birthday cakes I never blew out. Vacations I didn't get invited to. One photo where my face was literally turned away from the camera, captioned, Our Girls. Our Girls. When I was 12, Chloe got accepted into a competitive youth leadership camp. My mom hosted a brunch to celebrate. She made personalized place cards, custom cupcakes with her initials and icing. When I got into an art scholarship the same year, I told her at dinner, nervous, proud. She barely looked up. That's nice, honey, but you know that's not a real career path, right? I never brought up an achievement again. Back at the venue, I passed the setup crew unfolding chairs under a canopy. A whiteboard listed the seating chart. My name was still under overflow. I stared at it for a beat too long. Looking for someone? A voice asked behind me. It was Andrew. Just confirming my non-status, I said with a tight smile. He looked down at the chart. That's messed up, I shrugged. It's tradition. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said something I didn't expect. I asked Chloe why you weren't in the slideshow. I looked up. She said, Ava's never really been the sentimental type. She doesn't care about that stuff. I blinked. Wow. I figured that wasn't true. It's not, I said. I just stopped expecting to be remembered. Andrew folded his arms, scanning the brunch setup. Your mom. She runs this show, doesn't she? She writes the script, I replied. Chloe just plays her part. He nodded slowly. And what part do you play? I didn't answer, because I didn't know anymore. At brunch, I sat between two great aunts I hadn't seen in a decade. They spent 20 minutes debating which brand of sunscreen their bridge partner used. No one at the head table acknowledged me. Halfway through the meal, my mother tapped her glass. Before everyone heads home, she said, standing, I just want to thank our beautiful guests, and of course, my Chloe, for making this weekend so meaningful. Polite applause. She continued, watching my daughter marry such a respectable, accomplished man reminds me of what it means to build something solid, something to be proud of. She turned, glanced at me once, then added, not every path leads somewhere, but some daughters. They walk with purpose. The words were wrapped in grace, but the sting was precision cut. Andrew watched her say it. He didn't smile. That night, as I packed to leave, I stared at my reflection in the guest room mirror. I didn't cry, I didn't break, but I did whisper something to the silence. They've been telling the wrong story. And for the first time, I meant to correct it. I had one foot out the door when Andrew asked if we could talk. Not in passing, not politely. His voice was low, steady, almost rehearsed. Before you go, he said, can we sit for a minute? I paused, suitcase handle still gripped in my hand. The hallway was quiet, the rest of the family occupied with loading leftovers into cars and fussing over goodbyes that didn't involve me. I followed him to a side porch I hadn't noticed before. It overlooked the trees, private, cool, removed. He gestured to a bench. I sat. He stayed standing. I need to ask you something, he said. And I want you to answer like we're strangers. No sugarcoating, no family politics. I nodded slowly. Okay. Was what your mom said at brunch normal? I didn't pretend to misunderstand. Yes, for her. He blew out a breath and leaned against the porch rail. I thought maybe I was misreading it, but then I watched her last night during the speeches, and the way she reacted when you walked in, or didn't react. I've spent most of my life learning how not to take up space, I said, so that people like her wouldn't have to see what they chose to ignore. Andrew looked at me, and for once it wasn't with confusion or pity, it was with recognition. I grew up with a dad who only noticed me when I disappointed him, he said. So I learned to perform, got the grades, played the part. But I remember that same feeling, knowing they'd rather pretend you didn't exist than admit you made them uncomfortable. I blinked, caught off guard. He continued. When I first met Chloe, I thought she was just type A, overprepared. But lately I've started seeing the edges, things she says that sound like your mom. The exact phrasing, the tone. He hesitated. And the things she says about you. What kind of things? That you're dramatic, fragile, that you always think the world's against you. I swallowed. Sounds familiar. She told me you quit school, that you bounce between projects, that you don't follow through. I launched a nonprofit last year, I said, more to myself than to him. We serve over 200 kids, but I didn't post about it, so I guess it doesn't count. Andrew stepped forward. Can I show you something? I nodded. He pulled out his phone and opened his notes app, scrolled for a bit, then turned the screen toward me. It was a list. Long, timestamps, quotes. When she called her sister a leech. Said she hopes Ava stays broke, keeps her humble. Told Mom they should accidentally seat her by the kitchen. I stared at the screen. You kept these? He nodded. At first I didn't know why. Just felt wrong. Like insurance against a gut feeling I couldn't explain. And now? Now I think you're the only one in this family not pretending. I leaned back, the bench suddenly too small. Why are you telling me this now? He hesitated. Because I'm about to make a decision that's going to change things. And I wanted you to know you weren't crazy. Or alone. That night I didn't sleep. I laid in the guest room listening to the hum of someone vacuuming down the hall, the creak of suitcases being zipped, the murmur of Chloe's voice floating through the thin walls. Everything felt unreal, like the moment before a storm when you don't know if it's going to pass or split the sky in half. I thought about my childhood, the piano recitals I wasn't invited to because Mom said they were Chloe's thing, the time I brought home a painting award and she told me, don't let that distract you from real goals, the way she always used words like practical, stable, presentable. I thought of how many years I tried to make myself those things, tried to earn a seat I was never meant to be offered. And now, someone outside the script had noticed. The next morning, I dressed early and sat on the edge of my bed with my phone in hand, waiting. I didn't know for what. A knock, a text. A sign that what Andrew said last night wasn't just guilt or cold feet. Nothing came. Until breakfast. Until the moment the slideshow played again for those who missed it. Except this time, it stopped halfway through. And Andrew stood up. Ever had someone show you proof that you weren't imagining the way they erased you? No one expected the groom to interrupt the slideshow. The brunch hall had returned to its curated glow, champagne glinting in stemware, servers moving soundlessly, and laughter rolling in gentle waves across round tables dressed in white linen. It was the final act, a quiet farewell to a perfectly staged weekend. Until Andrew, mid-forkful of quiche, stood up and tapped his glass. The room fell quiet in stages. First the cousins, then the older relatives, until even my mother turned from her seat at the center table, eyebrows arched, head tilting in calculated curiosity. Chloe was smiling, until she wasn't. I wasn't planning to say anything this morning, Andrew began. But after what I witnessed this weekend, it didn't feel right to leave without being honest. A pause, long enough for tension to build, but not long enough for anyone to stop him. He looked at Chloe, then at my mother, and then at me. There's a story this family tells, over and over, and it's beautiful, really. It has tradition, success, pride, but like most polished stories, there are parts that get edited out. No one spoke. He took a breath. This weekend I saw how those edits are made. Who gets centered, who gets softened, and who gets erased. My stomach dropped, not because I was afraid, but because I knew exactly what was coming, and I wasn't sure I was ready for it. Andrew pulled out his phone. There's something I want you all to see. He walked over to the event laptop at the DJ booth, connected his device, and hit play. The screen flickered, then lit up with video. Not a wedding montage, not baby pictures, a screen recording. It started with a voice memo, Chloe's voice, talking to our mom on the phone, laughing. I told the planner to put Ava at the far end. I mean, no one really wants to hear about her community art stuff. Like, congrats on being broke, you know? The room went silent. A few guests turned toward me. I didn't move. The next clip, a message from my mother to a friend. She's never been the easy one. Too sensitive. Too odd. I love her, of course, but she's not the daughter you show off. Another clip. And another. Texts. Recordings. Comments taken from the Notes app Andrew had shared with me. My voice stayed inside my chest, locked behind years of trying to pretend this kind of pain didn't matter. But it did. It had always mattered. The video ended. Just a black screen, no music, no flourish. Andrew stepped forward again. His voice was calm, unshaken. I thought I was marrying into a family that valued honesty, loyalty, and love. I thought the exclusion I noticed was cultural, surface level. But it's deeper, it's systemic. And I don't want to spend my life pretending that kind of cruelty is normal. He turned to Chloe. You hurt your sister for sport, and your mom applauded it. Murmurs spread like static across the room. My mother stood. Andrew, this is incredibly inappropriate. He didn't look at her. So is erasing your own child. Then he reached into his pocket, pulled off his wedding band, and placed it on the nearest table. I won't be staying for the goodbye photos. And then he walked out. The silence was unbearable. And beautiful. My mother's face froze into something unreadable. Chloe's eyes were wide but dry, too stunned to cry, too proud to chase after him. No one moved. Until I stood up. And this time, I didn't shrink. Thank you, I said. Not to the room, but to no one in particular. For showing me I was never imagining it. Then I walked toward the exit, every step quiet but certain. Behind me, the whispers grew louder, but I didn't look back. Outside, the air felt different. Lighter, like I could breathe for the first time in a very long time. Andrew was leaning against a car, jacket off, tie loosened. You okay? He asked as I approached. I think I will be, I said. Eventually. He looked at me. You deserved better, from all of them. I nodded. Yeah, I know that now. He hesitated. So, what will you do next? I smiled. Write my own damn story. Ever been erased so often that you started to doubt your own story until someone read it out loud for the room? The day after Andrew left, no one said his name. The brunch ended in a haze, guests filing out in quiet pairs, dodging eye contact, offering half smiles like emotional tip jars. The ones who used to pat Chloe's arm in admiration now whispered behind their sunglasses. No one congratulated anyone on their way out. I had left first, not dramatically, just finally. But I didn't go far. I stayed in town that night, in a quiet roadside inn with floral wallpaper and a receptionist who didn't recognize me as the girl from the wedding. It was exactly what I needed. Anonymity, air, space, and silence that wasn't heavy. The next morning, I opened my phone to 6 missed calls and 3 voicemails, all from my mother. I listened to the last one first. Ava, you don't understand what you've done. You've humiliated this family. Chloe is devastated, and you think this is some sort of performance piece? You always had a flair for drama, but this crossed a line. No apology, just control, rebranded as concern. I deleted it. That afternoon, I sat at a cafe with floor-to-ceiling windows and wrote in my journal. Not about them, about me. About what it felt like to be believed without begging for it. About what Andrew's quiet rebellion had cracked open inside me. Then, a message from Aunt Linda popped up. Saw the video. Don't let them pull you back into the role they wrote for you. You're more than their scapegoat. I blinked at the words, because scapegoat was a term I had only used in my head. Never aloud, never in front of family. I typed back, "Thank you, I didn't know anyone else saw it." Her response came instantly. "Some of us always did, we just didn't know how to say it." By evening, I got a text from Chloe. "So this is your version of support? Blowing up my wedding?" I didn't respond, but she kept going. "You've always hated that I succeeded where you couldn't. You say Mom played favorites? No, she backed the one who made something of herself. You were just there, flailing, still are." She wasn't hurt, she was threatened. Because for the first time, the illusion cracked, and the spotlight didn't work the way it used to. I closed the messages without reading the rest. Later that night, I opened the laptop I'd been too afraid to touch most of the weekend. The homepage for my nonprofit was still open, the last draft of our upcoming newsletter halfway finished. I stared at the blank text field for a minute, then typed, "Healing doesn't always come through reunion. Sometimes it starts when you stop begging to be misunderstood." I hit save. 2 days later, a package arrived at my apartment. No return address, but I knew the handwriting on the label. Inside, a box of old photos. Some I hadn't seen in years. One of us at a water park. Another from a school play. In most of them, I was off to the side, blurry, mid-blink, mid-step. Taped to the inside lid was a note. "I know we weren't fair to you. I thought we were protecting Chloe, but maybe we were just avoiding the truth. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to have these." Dad. It didn't make everything better, but it made something shift, not because it erased the pain, but because it acknowledged it. That's the difference between guilt and accountability. One says, I feel bad. The other says, I see what I did, and I won't ask you to fix it for me. That weekend, I went back to my studio. My team had already heard about what happened. One of the interns showed me a Reddit thread that had surfaced the video, already titled, Groom exposes bride's cruelty at wedding toast gone wrong. I expected to cringe. I didn't. I watched it once. Not for them, for me. And when it ended, I whispered something I'd never said out loud. I deserved better. I always did. Ever had someone finally say, I saw it too? It took 12 days before I opened the envelope from my mother. Not because I was afraid of what was inside. I already knew. It sat on my kitchen counter in pale pink stationery, her version of an olive branch. The handwriting on the front was careful, almost rehearsed, like she wanted it to look as close to grace as guilt could allow. I didn't tear it. I peeled it open slowly, like a wound I wanted to witness one more time. Inside, the note was short. I never realized how deeply I hurt you. Maybe I didn't want to, but I hope someday you'll come home. Love, Mom. No apology, no ownership, just a shadow dressed like sentiment. I folded the letter back into the envelope and slid it into a drawer. Not out of anger, but because I wasn't coming home. I already had one now. Work helped, not in the way people mean when they say, throw yourself into your passion. No, this wasn't escape. It was excavation. Returning to my community studio felt different now. The walls still smelled like old paint and sawdust, but they felt like mine again. The volunteers greeted me with warm, quiet respect. No one brought up the video. No one needed to, but I knew they'd seen it. So when I announced the theme for our upcoming exhibit, The Erased Daughter, no one blinked. They just asked how they could help. We built it from scratch, literally. I sourced used furniture from estate sales, burned old journals into sculpture forms, turned voicemails into sound installations. Every piece told a story that had once been cut from someone else's version of events. The show would be small, one night only. No press, no influencers, just honesty in raw form. 2 days before the exhibit, I got an email from Chloe. No subject line, just her name. I've been thinking, maybe we should talk. Not to blame, just to clear the air. You deserve that. She wasn't wrong. I did deserve something. But it wasn't this. I didn't reply. Closure, I'd learned, wasn't something you waited for from the person who broke you. It was something you granted yourself, without permission. The night of the show, I arrived an hour early. Not to check logistics, I'd triple-checked everything already, but to breathe. The room was quiet, the lighting low and amber. Each piece stood on its own, a worn-out dining chair with a single place setting, a series of family portraits where one figure was always erased, a glass panel etched with the phrase, "She never left, you just stopped mentioning her." They weren't literal representations of me, but they were true. That was enough. The doors opened at 7. People trickled in slowly, friends, students, strangers I'd never met but who had seen the video. Some lingered at pieces for minutes. Others moved quickly, unsteady, like they recognized themselves in the work and didn't know if that was permission or punishment. Then came the ones I didn't expect. Aunt Linda, my high school art teacher, a woman from my old neighborhood. She brought her teenage daughter, who quietly slipped a handwritten poem into our comment box. And finally, Dad. He didn't approach me, just nodded from across the room, eyes wet but steady. I nodded back. That was all it needed to be. At 9:15, I walked to the center of the room where the final installation stood. A plain wooden chair. No carvings, no fabric, no plaque. Just empty. I held a pocket knife in one hand. The good kind, sharp, clean, meant for craft, not harm. I kneeled, and slowly, in the back of the chair, I carved 4 simple words. I was always here. The room went quiet, and then, applause. Not loud, not chaotic, but full. Like every person in that room knew they'd witnessed not just art, but return. Not as a daughter, not as a victim, as someone who had always belonged, even when no one saved her a seat. That night, after the gallery emptied and the lights were off, I sat in that chair, not to perform, not to explain, but to rest. And for the first time in my life, the weight I carried didn't feel like proof of being unloved. It felt like evidence I survived. Sometimes we wait our whole lives for someone to save us a seat, until we realize we've always had the power to build our own. I didn't fix my family. I fixed the part of me that believed their silence meant I didn't matter. If this story made you feel seen, or if you've ever felt erased in a room full of people who claimed to love you, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment, let me know where you're watching from, or what moment in the story hit home the most. And if this video stayed with you, subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. Your seat is already here.